So I think we can move forward to our first panel discussion, which will be focused, as I said, on urban flooding. This is an increasing pressing challenge as climate change and rapid urbanization is actually driving the frequency of these events up. And today we are very privileged to have such a distinguished panel of experts, and which will share insights on innovative technologies, as well as their most, let's say, updated and good practices in operating with Earth observation data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and how these are actually shaping flood forecasting, monitoring, and management activities. So let's now, I will now introduce our speakers, which are 5 in this panel. The first one is Peter Salamon, coordinator of the Copernicus Emergency Management Service at DG GRC. Thank you for joining us today, Peter. Second speaker of today will be Antonella Morgillo from the Italian Civil Protection Department. Thank you for joining us. Third one in the row is Stephen Clandillon, director at ICube-SERTIT and also partner in our CENTAUR consortium. Moving forward, we have our fourth speaker, Fredrik Wetterhall, which is he's currently a senior researcher at the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast, ECMWF in short. Thank you for joining us today. And last but not least, Franck Ranera, currently Senior Manager for Government Solutions at ICEYE. Thank you, Franck, to joining us. So just before giving the floor to Peter, I just want to explain for our audience how the panels will work. So each speaker will have, in this case, around 6 to 7 minutes to introduce themselves, as well as a bit of their organization, their contribution related to the topic of the panel. After that, there will be, I will moderate the discussion with guiding questions for the panelists, and then we will address all possible questions you may add in the Q&A section of Zoom. So let's begin with Peter. Thanks again for joining us. And Peter, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gabriel, and good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here today. Thanks for the invitation. As all of you have seen, I mean, CENTAUR project is working on quite a number of very good innovations that hopefully will bring also forward the Copernicus Emergency Management Service, for which I'm the coordinator. Now, I suppose, or I hope most of you will know about the Emergency Management Service, but maybe some of you don't. So apologies for those that do know, bear with me while I very briefly outline the Emergency Management Service, but then I will make also a couple of points in particular in relation to urban flood risk management and the challenges, which is the topic of today's panel. Now, the Emergency Management Service is part of Europe's space program, one of the 6 Copernicus services. Most of you will be familiar with the Sentinel satellites, but we do have 6 associated Copernicus services that bring the satellite data together with model and in situ data to create really added value products for the users. And one of the services is the Emergency Management Service, which has quite a long story already. We're operational since 2012, one of the earliest services that became operational, and it's managed here at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, of course, together with our industry partners and the service providers. In a nutshell, what we are trying to do here is supporting all actors when it comes to disaster risk management with products, with complementary added value products for all phases of the disaster risk management cycle. And then, of course, this includes also products for the urban area. And I will come back to the problems and the challenges that also we have as in the operational emergency management service with addressing these issues. Now, most of you will know that we have different components in the emergency management service, one on on-demand mapping, one on early warning and monitoring, and the last one on exposure mapping. And here in this course of the discussion, of course, the elements in relation to flood monitoring, forecasting, but also exposure mapping is relevant. So we have the on-demand mapping, both in rapid mapping and risk and recovery mode, supporting emergency response, but also prevention planning when it comes to floods. We have our forecasting system. The European Flood Awareness System was already mentioned by Valerio before. And then, of course, we have also, it's important to look at impacts. And here in particular, where we have the product in relation to the global human settlements there, where we map building infrastructure, which is a crucial part, in particular when we try to predict impacts in urban areas. Now, a couple of words on challenges in urban flood risk management. I mean, let me first maybe say that a lot has been done in the past few years. Most of you will be familiar with the Floods Directive that in Europe that requires member states to establish flood hazard and risk maps and also come up with flood risk management plans. We are now in the third cycle of implementation of the Floods Directive, so continuously trying to improve all the elements. Member states are putting a very big effort in that. Nevertheless, in particular in urban areas, challenges remain, and climate change that drives up the frequency and the severity of urban flooding as well. It has been mentioned already. Now, I want to just mention a couple of elements in relation to urban flood risk management for the entire disaster risk management cycle. And I start with prevention, but also with the recovery phase. We all know that in particular in urban environments, land use planning is incredibly challenging because there's a lot of pressure on building on this highly valuable land or strongly or increasing urbanization in areas also that have a higher risk of flooding. And of course, there are limitations to prevention, in particular in urban areas. I mean, you cannot start building big dams or give large room to the river if the river flows straight to a highly urbanized area. Now, and just to give you also maybe with recent examples that there is, however, a need to work on these elements. We had the Central European floods just in September, which also affected Vienna. And one of the main elements that protected Vienna strongly from having a higher impact was the Danube Channel that was constructed, but in the 70s, and took quite a few years to be built. And it was a massive investment, but it did pay out now. Now, we have a similar situation, for example, if you look at Spain, Valencia, for those that have been in the city, the Turia River was once flowing through the city, and because of the frequent flooding in the 60s, they decided to move the channel outside of the city. Now, these projects are, of course, extremely challenging now to implement in a circumstances like today. So we have to come up with other solutions as well, and there are where there are, of course, the idea to have or the movement to have more green cities, so open more green spaces. There's mobile dikes, etc. So there are elements that are possible to include also for prevention in urban floods, but it remains challenging. Then when we look at forecasting, and this is more on the preparedness part, also here we've seen an incredible improvements in numerical weather prediction, but and I guess maybe Fredrik will tell more about that. But we still have challenges when it comes in particular to precipitation events, like we have seen the one in Valencia, to have sufficient lead time and to capture the right magnitude, because we will see more extreme and record-breaking precipitation events. Is still a challenge for numerical weather prediction. And then, of course, when you want to look at impacts, also this is extremely challenging for urban areas. It does make a difference, you know, if a flood starts during rush hour or on the weekend in urban areas, or if a flood blocks a main transport way in and out of the city or not. So these are specific things that we are quite difficult to address. And last but not least, then when it comes to monitoring, and this is here a lot, I mean, with the emergency management service, we do a lot with Earth observation, but products, and still here also when it comes to monitoring, we all know the limitations of synthetic aperture radar in urban environment with the backscatter effects. Now there are scientific solutions, and Valerio has presented those. Using coherence data or combining information with terrain data. These are indeed promising avenues, and we are really looking forward to the results of CENTAUR, and I think probably Stephen will maybe even have a couple of more words about these scientific solutions. So yeah, these are, from my point of view, a big kind of first ideas or elements in relation to urban flood risk management and the challenges. So I stop here. Gabriel, I give back to you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the insightful presentation of and an overview of what Copernicus CMS is doing, and your opinion about the current challenges seen in relation to this type of events. Moving forward to our next speaker, Antonella Morgillo from Italian Civil Protection. She will bring us another perspective, the perspective of the end user, user on the ground, also trying to share with you all how products and technologies developed then are being used. Antonella, thank you to be with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this exceptional meeting. Yeah, I'm Antonella Morgillo. I work at the National Civil Protection Department based in Rome. I am a meteorologist and an early warning expert. So let me say some few words about the civil protection, the Italian National Civil Protection System. It is a complex system with the mission of preserving life, settlements, animals, and the environment. So it's a very challenging mission. The Italian civil protection is composed by several pieces, only coordinated by the national department, and the pieces are the public administrations. The public administration like the government, the ministries, the regions, and the operational bodies like firefighters, policy forces, and so on. We have another piece, important piece, is the scientific communities that is embedded in the system and help us to provide the best up-to-date innovation in the scientific terms. And the other piece is the civil society, composed by such as the volunteers, the professional body, the private agency, and so on. What is our relationship with the Copernicus emergency? I would say that it's a loving relationship by a lot of 2000 from the beginning. So we have a close collaboration with the emergency mapping, but also with the emergency, the other part of the emergency, the Copernicus Emergency Service. We are the authorized user for Italy to activate the system, and we do it for us for in the national emergency, and also for on behalf of our end user that are the member of the Italian civil protection system. So it's a long story, and it's a story that lasts 20 years lasts, so it's very in the fruitful collaboration. So it's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonella, to share some insights on how you're interacting with this type of products and data. Moving forward to our first speaker, Steven Clandillon, Director of ICube-SERTIT, and also part of the CENTAUR consortium. I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great. Okay, my name is Steven Clandillon. As I said, I'm Director of CERTIT, and I'm part of the CENTAUR team, CERTIT CENTAUR team, where CERTIT has been involved quite a lot in the urban flooding, as you know, because it's been a challenge for a long time, very long time. I'm involved also in the task 5.1, where we'll be discussing, working with the GRC on what can we bring from CENTAUR into what, or if we can bring something from CENTAUR into Copernicus CMS rapid mapping, as I'm also a service evolution lead in CMS rapid mapping. I thought you're sharing slides.
Okay. I just wanted to check whether you're doing better. I can do it. Just a moment.
Well, it's pretty pictures, and pretty pictures are part of our.
No problem. Just 1 second, and you will have it.
It's a bit more interesting than looking at me.
Of course. Just
or I can share if you give me the right to share. I have no issue with that.
You should have the right to share, but I'm ready. So
okay, please go ahead.
Everyone should see the screen now.
Can you move on to the second one, please? Second slide.
Yes.
Okay, just a bit of background. ICube-SERTIT is part of the University of Strasbourg. Okay, and our main axis at the moment is what I call water in all of its different states in X, Y, and Z, plus of course T for time. And uniquely in France and in many, perhaps worldwide, we're involved in very, very many different frameworks of rapid mapping. So we have a 24-hour service, even when we're not 24/7 in EMS. Okay, so we work within EMS and both in rapid mapping and risk and recovery. We work with with and through the CNES in the charter, and soon we'll be starting up France 2030 services for the state of France. And we work with the insurance industry and regional authorities. So we're very into rapid mapping. It's been something that we've been up to since the late 90s, where we were involved in precursor programs for the International Charter, worked in all the framework program projects that were possible, that were real precursors of rapid mapping, which means respond before GMS plus, of course, safer. And now, since we've got into Copernicus CMS rapid mapping, we've had a fairly major impact. Okay, so could you please move on? So what's all this fuss about urban flooding? Well, it's very difficult at times because, well, there are clouds that get in the way of optical data. And as I always said, there's nothing, radar is great when you have nothing else. But radar data, okay, you can see the floods, for example, in Panama here. Everything's dark, except for the city. There's a high backscatter, meaning that geometrical rebound with backscatter, which basically means we can't see much in Palamas, but we'll be getting onto perhaps ways of getting around that later. So our maps come out. Our maps come out often with a gap in the urban area. So we had to. Please go ahead.
Okay.
So in EMS, Copernicus EMS, we had to come up with a solution in the last few months, moving towards urban flooding. And this went through a first stage of working on flood depth estimation. This, by the way, is now integrated for the moment anyway, back into CENTAUR. So it's called interpolated flood surfaces, and I'd like to really thank the team, CERTIT and GRC teams that worked a lot on getting this up and operational. So please move on. Next slide, please. So at the moment, this is the product. It's a flood depth product. Here's an example over Brazil, and pretty good. It's a pretty good, robust system that works for floods big and small. Of course, we're not there yet at urban flooding. So next one, yes. So at the moment, we're on. We're trying to develop something that uses all kinds of data and all kinds of observed events from those data of flood events to map what's happening in urban areas. So here on the left, you see what we normally would produce today, which is basically urban flooding, flooding, but in and around urban areas. And this is what, on the right, what we hope to produce soon, which fills in gaps in imagery, fills in also the urban areas where we can get a decent set of data, both in terms of rapid mapping and in terms of satellite data, the extraction, but also DTM. Could you please move on? We're using social media data. As both a validation, both in the validation process to see whether we're getting this right, roughly, or not. And also for the next one, as an input to try and expand on what we're doing in XFLUS, to expand into urban areas where we get social media data. And here I'd like to thank our partners, Hensoldt, because they sometimes provide us with this data. And this means that we can get into the urban areas, and even when the DTM doesn't allow it very much, or other issues. Okay, so this is great. We're working on improving this. So next, please. So at the moment, we are working on getting into the urban area. Got pretty good results. There are issues, marginal issues, that we're trying to get rid of, that we're trying to improve. DTM conclusion is DTM quality is absolutely primordial, and we really do need member states to come up with, or whoever is the user, to come up with a really good DTM so we can get into urban areas. Social media markers enhance the results, both for us to get collaborate what we're doing, and also to get into urban areas to a certain extent. We're collaborating with the GRC EFAS team. Thank you, Peter, who have their model FlexTH, and we're trying to learn because it's not easy. As Peter says, it's not easy. It's not easy for anybody. So we're trying to improve. At the moment, we're trying to improve by automating the algorithm, better integrating social media markers with our partners, and also I'd like to talk about developments that are more R&D for the moment still, but we're getting there. Integrating Floria through, which is a CENTAUR indicator. Could you please move on?
Yes, sir.
We're using interferometric properties of SAR imagery with variations in intensity and coherence to produce. On the next slide, we worked with a really nice one over Ukraine, where you can see on the left the extraction from Floria of flooding within urban areas through these using interferometry. It's pretty automatic using Sentinel-1 data, so you need Sentinel-1 data. And you can combine this with what we normally extract to greatly improve that. We're also looking forward to improving, to inputting this into into our XFLUS, which is basically part of. Can you go on? I think part of our thing. We're of getting into the urban areas. So where are you going to start using Floria? Start using social media, and also perhaps other modeling, and this is a bit more out there, using our R&D, using cellular automata to try and indicate areas that might be flooded, might be flooded that we can't see through remote sensing. So it's to enhance, improve the problems. So therefore, yes, urban flooding has been a challenge for many, many, many years. I still remember being greatly surprised getting a wonderful image back in 2005 for Katrina. And for Katrina, it was an optical image, and we could extract it because of shortwave infrared. We don't always get that, and we don't always get optimal data often. So we have to be there to try and use our data to optimize the data, optimize everything we have to get into the urban areas, which that's where our users are interested in. Why? Because people live there. So yeah, it's still a challenge. We're trying to get there, along with others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We'll now move on to our next speaker, Fredrik Wetterhall from ECMWF. Welcome. And I just want to check before if do you need us to share your screen, the slides?
I can try to share from my side.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
If it doesn't work, you can jump in.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting us to be part of this. ECMWF is a long acronym, stands for the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecast. So weather forecast is our business. And we are involved in the entire project. We are working there actively. We also worked very closely with the Copernicus services on many areas, and especially on flooding. I've been involved myself personally. I'm a hydrologist by training, even though I'm working at the Meteorological Center. So I thought I'd maybe share some a bit information in general about what we do in terms of the forecasting side, and some issues related to precipitation. So I'll share my screen now and move on from there. Can you see it now?
We see the presentation, not in the presentation mode.
Okay. I will try to do that now. Do you see it now in presentation mode?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, that was actually not starting from the start. All right, so there we go. I chose to call this predicting the future, and this is an image to show how well we can predict certain aspects of weather. If you're looking at on the top bar here, we're talking about extreme winds and rainfall, and currently we can predict those fairly well up to a week in advance. And this is a slide from a few years back, and saying by 2025 we should be able to do 1.5 weeks in advance, and we are soon there. So we'll see if we can manage to reach that level of confidence in our forecasts. But these things are quite difficult to predict in very much advance, more than a week or 1.5 weeks. Other types of phenomena, like large-scale patterns of heat waves or cold spells or changes in the weather, can be predicted a little bit better, a little bit longer. And then global scale anomalies, for example, like El Nino, can be predicted in months in advance. So it's important to know that the different types of things have a different type of forecast horizon, so to speak. And the way we do this is that we are really heavily reliant on observations. And you can see a picture here of what kind of observations we are gathering to do our forecasts. we have this picture here shows that we have about 800 million observations that we collect every day, and then we run the forecast forward in time. And what we do is that we put all this information into a model, a global model, where we look at all different kinds of events happening. For example, we can see tornadoes, ocean waves, and hurricanes, and stuff like that. So we're really looking at all types of global weather phenomena. And we take this and then we put it forward into prediction models of impacts as well. So not only weather forecasts, but we do also predictions of wildfires and flooding. That's part of our contribution to Copernicus, for example. And then you take the weather forecast and you put it into an impact model. But one thing is very important here is that extreme localization of precipitation is still something that we are struggling to predict very, very well, as I mentioned before. Here's an image as well of the Valencia floods, and you can see that this is really an impact of extreme precipitation, and this was the effect after the event. And extreme precipitation is really something that is very important in Europe and globally as well. And the activation comes, we had 28 activations globally and 18 activations in Europe from following a flood event. So what are the challenges then? Very, very quickly here, we can see that on the right-hand side, you will see a typical output of precipitation from the model, which means that we are not able to resolve sort of fine-scale features of the precipitation patterns. On the right-hand side, you would see an observational or radar image of the actual precipitation pattern. And you will see that in reality, the intensity is much higher than we are able to predict well in the global model. So we will be able to predict that a weather front is coming with precipitation, but not the amount when we have extreme events happening usually. And how do we get further then to predict this better? Well, one thing is the models keep on getting better. We keep on having high resolution. So in time, we will be able to do this better and better. But in order to provide some reliable information to the users, we have other types of things we can apply to make the forecast better. I'll give you a few examples of what you can do with the forecasts. The first one I'm showing here is something we call Extreme Precipitation Index. And on the right-hand side, you will see the precipitation forecast from the model. It looks like you have precipitation, but it's quite of a busy picture. You cannot really see where you have the extreme events happening. On the right-hand side, we've taken this information and we have calculated what we call an anomaly, which is an unusual event compared to the climate at that point. And you can look at this in 24 hours, 2 days, 5 days, or 10-day periods. And you will see that some areas are then easier to highlight. Okay, here is where we'll have more of an intense event than usual. So this is one product we are providing. For the CENTAUR project, we are working on an index based on return period of extreme precipitation. A return periods answer the questions, how often an event happens that you in the forecast compared to historical events. So for example, if you have a 10-year return period, you will expect that this event happened on average 10 times during 100 years or 1 in 10 years. If you have a 50-year return period, meaning that you have an occurrence, 2 occurrences in 100 years or 1 in 50 years. And why is this important? Well, if you're looking on the timelines here on the right-hand side in blue, in the observed precipitation, you will have a return period of 50 years will be something close to 100 millimeters for this particular location. Whereas in the model, we will not be able to have those kind of intensities. Instead, there will be a lower intensity. But if you then calculate instead the return period, you can then map what the model says to the actual reality. And this is an example where we have looked at flooding in Turin in Italy. And if you calculate the return period for this event, you can see here with lead time means that we have a 4-day forecast of something happening, a 10-year return period showing up on the map. As you go forward in time, this becomes more clear because the model is more able to predict this better. and it's quite closely related to the actual event happening in the reality. Now, this is comparing return periods, but then you can use this as an activation saying that something big is going to happen and you might want to take some actions. So these are just a few examples of what kind of products we can do. We don't call this machine learning per se, but this is really post-processing of the forecast using statistical methods. So machine learning is really what is helping us to make these products. So that was a little bit of flavor of what we do. I will stop there and leave the floor to the next person. We can't hear you.
Oh yeah, I think you're still muted, and it seems that maybe you're not able to unmute yourself, which I think is probably the case.
I can maybe take the lead here, because if I'm not wrong, I was supposed to talk now, so I can introduce myself, Gabriel. That's no problem at all. So first of all, thanks to all of you, and so for you for the invitation. I think I'm a little bit the outside player here in the center, in the community that is talking, but it's very good to be able to share some insight and some elements with you. So I will definitely share my slide right now. Give me just a second for that, please, and also indicate whether it works. Okay, so you should see my slide. I would like to put it in the presentation mode, but there's a lot of windows around here. Okay, actually, so please just give me a sign of life.
And I confirm we see well your screen. And apologies for the technical issue.
Absolutely, no problem. Usual life, I would say. We deal with disaster, and so we are flexible and we can manage that. So yeah, my name is Franck Ranera. I had the chance to work with some of you in the past. I'm actually working in ICEYE, and I'm in charge of expanding the usage, of developing the usage of our solutions. But let's start from the beginning. ICEYE is best known as a data provider at the early stages. Indeed, they launched their first microsatellite in 2018. But because this concept demonstrated to be super valuable and working, then the company increased massively in the last years. And actually now they had launched 38 satellites. We already have some plans for 2025 and 2026. So we know that we will have around 50 satellites by end of 2025. So, but let's go back to our thematic. ICEYE is a data provider. They're also selling satellite, but they're also developing solutions. And that's my role in the company. Our solutions are really focused on disaster management, because this massive amount of satellite that we do have give us this permanent monitoring capacity. And we want to leverage that as much as we can. As you see, two profiles of end user, insurance and government. We start to see other coming over also, that we use them to call them utilities, but they are expanding a little bit the portfolio of user that we have. The value that we bring is obviously in the emergency response phase. But yes, indeed, the data can be used, or products can be used that we generate can be used after for post-crisis analysis. But the key asset is really to be able to give an insight to the authorities or to the customer to what is happening on the ground. And I would say in the coming hour, just after the event declare. Actually, we're focusing quite a lot on flood and fire, as you can see in the last line here. But we are developing a lot of other products dealing with ground motions and other type of value that we can take from SAR data. I can spend a lot of hours on that slides, but I would say that's the way we work for flood. That's quite usual and common. All the speech that I heard this morning, we can repeat exactly the same elements. What makes maybe a difference or complementarity is the way we implement that. So obviously, when we monitor an event, we are dealing with early warnings. We are combining a massive amount of information there, not just meteorological and rainfall information. And I can give a little bit more in details into that, but I don't want to spend much more time. The key point is to have the idea of the watersheds that can be flooded, and within this index of risk, the percentage of confidence, we can say, of risk of being flooded. This information is a part of the element that the meteorologist team is using to task our satellite. And again, quite usual, early warnings we task, that's great. But the key point here is that the satellite is not anymore a cost driver. So we can massively task and get a lot of information, satellite information, over many places that we consider of being at risk. Just to give an insight, the early warnings goes for 4 days in advance, then 3, then 2, and 1. So we can refine better the area that can be impacted. That's not just SAR data, obviously, where we can talk about ISAR data, but we can discuss as well about free satellite data that we integrate. SNS, we mentioned previously, so we start collecting a lot of information to be able to produce something. Something is basically the last pillar here on the right-hand side, the depth and the maximum extent of the flood in a very short time frame. And we know that this type of service, information to authority during emergency response, cannot rely only on satellite data. So we do combine a massive amount of other information, SAR, satellite, I mentioned it, session network, we mentioned it, mass media, mention it as well, river gauges, any information that can come from our customer, we integrate it in our service, such a way to have the most accurate, enriched product. And one of the elements that is interesting here is the, I would say, capacity to commit to deliver this information each 24 hours. That's just a global vision, and I took the Spanish floods, obviously, because it's let's say an event that had a very strong attention in the last weeks. But I would say the complementarity that ICEYE can bring, the service that ICEYE can bring to existing European services or international services, is the rapidity in providing the information, is the fact that we are not, and the meteorologists, as I said before, that are tasking the satellite, they do follow the system, the storm system. It is dynamic as we are. And you can see in the bottom of the slides, the area that we identified as flooded and where we deliver flood information on the 29th of October. And you can see on the right-hand side, at the end, we cover a lot of other areas that increase the day passing. And when I say that the rapidity is one key element for us, on the 29th, we were already providing information to Spanish authorities, and this every day when we continue to follow and to monitor the storm system. Again, our value is in the emergency response. We really want to provide something in the early stages just after that the event declare. Just to give a kind of a matrix of a volume of experience that ICEYE has gained in the last 3 years or 4 years now, is that in the last 3 months, we cover 46 events. Globally speaking, since 2021, it is 240 events. Now we work in 41 countries. We can work everywhere in the world, obviously, but that's an interesting topics in terms of complementarity as well. Our service to commit to the 24-hour delivery, to commit on this frequency of delivering information, need to be prepared. We need to have the DTM, we need to have access to river coaches, and we work with that with our customer outside the crisis, obviously. Okay, very quick examples. Most of you have seen that, either from us or either from your self-activity or from the media. But basically some elements that we produce for the Spanish authorities this last week. That's when it was interesting, but we all catch social media information. And this information is indeed used to, I would say, overcome to some extent the limitation of SAR in urban areas, but also to enrich the product and to sometimes also to validate the information that we get. I think it's 6-7 minutes.
Okay, so thank you, Franck, very much for the presentation. I just have some little extra technical issue. I see that today is not the best day. I'm sorry for that. So moving forward, we now enter the let's say the discussion part of this panel. So I would like to address few questions from our side, and this will be open question for all of you. So I'm not addressing anyone in specific. So whoever has wants to answer, feel free to unmute and provide an answer. So my first question is actually about something that has been brought up in different presentations. So real-time data. Because they are, let's say, such as social media and other sources data, because they are very crucial in those kind of flood scenarios. So what are the main challenges to achieving, let's say, actual real-time urban flood monitoring, and how can actually the current and new technologies help address these issues? There is one shy.
But I can start to answer to that, but please, sorry,
Thank you.
Antonella.
It's always tough to start, so thank you, Frank.
No, Antonella, please go, because it's super interesting to have the vision of the end user.
Oh, no, just a comment. Yeah, you know, in the first phase of the emergency, it's crucial to have information about the current situation and the clear overview of all the situation. So in an operational point of view, a real-time data is very important. And you know, satellite data is the best, because they give us a top image of the situation. But one of the issues is that the satellite data needs the time to be processed. So it's one of the way in which we can overcome this issue is to introduce the pre-tasking procedure. So for a pre-tasking procedure, we need a good meteorological and also model flood forecasting. It's a good start. And but climate change introduces some issues. That is the difficulty to localize an extreme event, like in the Valencia case. We have this kind of the amount of the precipitation is underestimated, so it was an issue. So just to draw an operational point of view, please.
Thank you very much, Antonella, for bringing this perspective. I don't know if Frank wants to come back to that now.
Yeah, obviously.
For the audience also, I can just briefly recap on the question. So it's related to near real-time data, and how's actually, what are the challenges in achieving this result, into integrating real-time data for better products and services?
Go, Steven.
Okay. First of all, we need that real-time data, and I agree with Antonella. We need, and as Peter said, well, we need all that modeling. We need to know exactly what, we need to have a pretty good idea of where something's going to happen, and to get pre-tasking up and running. Sometimes we'll miss, sometimes we hopefully it won't be that often, but we get a 24-hour leap ahead. We can provide the services much faster, and we also need to get data far more often during the day. Also, perhaps simplify our products, but that's another discussion to be had within EMS, so that we can get things out faster with less finicky products, and get the products out faster, and also more often during the day if we get the data. But also modeling. Frank does that a lot. I know we've discussed that. We need modeling from what we see to see what to show what we don't see. For example, modeling into the urban areas, and we need to do that on a regular basis. So it's we need real time. We need a lot of data, much more often than we're getting now.
Okay, so amount and frequency.
But also coverage, because that's what ICEYE doesn't do as often. We haven't seen it. We need a fairly decent resolution, but also to cover the real big events. There you go. So Franck can probably say yes, and he's going to sell ICEYE. But I would love to get more of that data, ICEYE data, more often. And Cosmo and whatever. And Cosmo and whatever.
I take a note, Stephen.
I said data. We'll discuss this before.
I take a note anyhow, whatever whatever it will be. No, but to answer to the question, I think indeed a massive amount of data. I mean, near real time means satellite can be one source, but near real time for satellite is maybe more adapted. We will not be now. Social networks, videos, information coming from on-the-ground people, that's something that we get very quickly. And we need to be in a position to absorb, I would say, analyze this massive amount of data, because it's massive what we receive. And we, on top of that, we put our constellation that give us impressive amount of data, as well the free available data, Sentinel, Landsat, and some other may be there. So you understand at the end, even in the early hours, just after an event, we do have a massive amount of data available. We need an organization. We need to be able to absorb that. So that won't be done by one team, two teams. You need to be either an organization, and Copernicus is a good example of that. Either the company should have the strategy to do it, and in ICEYE we took that direction. But yeah, I would say the organization is key, and obviously the procedure that need to be standardized, to be sure that everything is channeled in the right people in the right way, and that the effort is in the processing and analysis. And again, the commitment that we take in providing information each 24 hours, we can never reduce that time. But actually, we want to give us some margin, let's say, in producing the information.
Thank you, Franck, for your contribution. If there is no one else that wants to address this question, I have another one.
We really need real time as Franck said, we need to get a lot of data in our geodatabases ahead of something happening. Therefore, we need member states on board proactively sending us their DTMs, their DSMs, I don't care, but very, very high resolution ones that are good.
That actually connects with my following question, but I see an hand raised by Antonella first.
Yeah, just to add some operational point of view, but we have the problem to delivering this huge amount of data to the operational bodies that are in the field. So it's important also to have a shared database in which we can share the data and with the same format. So the problem of the interoperability of the data format it could be an issue, and also a good security procedure for the data. So it is just another put on the table.
Thank you, Antonella.
Gabriel, maybe that's something that I would like to add, because it has to be very clear also on how ICEYE position in this discussion. Indeed, I understand what you say, Antonella, with respect to a massive amount of data. I would even say that the heterogeneity of the maturity of the end user we are talking to, not all of them knows how to, integrate this information or use the full value of this information. That's also something to consider. And in ICEYE, we just deliver a GIS compliant layer of information with the fluid extent and fluid depth. And then that's either our customer directly or through other programs that will ingest this layer of information, which is very basic at the end, the depth and the extent, into the ArcGIS system, GIS system, and will take the full value from, I will say, an operational coordination activity, you know, for the fields on the team, or to coordinate all the resources that are needed. So again, I understand your point with respect to a massive amount of data, but in our case, we are not distributing all the data that we receive and that we use. We just deliver the fluid extent, the fluid depth. That's just.
Thank you, Frank, for the clarification. I would like to move to a let's say side topic in this regard. So we talk about different solutions, different products, and I would like also to see how you, with your different expertise and experience you bring also from your entities which you represent, how do you involve the end users in the kind of the code development, or like in the like to ensure that the uptake of your solution are the actually successful? And this, of course, for Antonella, it's the other way around. So how do you let's say are included in these processes as civil protection, and how you bring your inputs in the feedback loop?
I can maybe start from the EMS perspective, and then Antonella can complement. But I mean, we do have I mean, feedback from the user is a key element when we want to design and evolve our products. We have quite a strong mechanism established for all of the different products and components that we have in the emergency management service to constantly collect this type of feedback, and then to try and address it in our new innovations or evolution of the service. And I see, I mean, I'm looking a little bit, Gabriel, I'm looking a little bit also at questions made here, and this is also because one question relates to an analysis after the event. Yes, and of course we do that as well, and I'm sure this is also done at ICEYE or at ECMWF. They do post-event analysis of their forecasts and review products, etc. So this is crucial to make a post-event analysis, see how products have worked or have not worked, where there are deficiencies, and how to address them in the next in progressing and improving the overall setup. And as I said, I guess this is not unique to the emergency management service, but it's probably done in all of the elements that the colleagues here on the panel are working on.
Just quick respond to the, oh, there is an hand raising. Quick response to the questions. Yeah, as civil protection, we actively participated to the commission, the early warning group. So we bring our expertise or our point of view, member state point of view, for the development of the products. I think that Peter knows very well this, and we share our feedback after the activation. We share our feedback with the mapping team, and also we share the experience that we collected on the field. To improve these products. So this is what we do for the improvement.
Thank you, Antonella. I saw before an hand raised by Steven, so the floor is yours. You're on mute.
Sometimes it's better. The Copernicus CMS Rapid Mapping and Risk and Recovery combined, EMS combined has the full set of products, the rapidity, the organization that's necessary to provide these products. doesn't always work perfectly, but nothing does. But it does have the capacity, and we've shown that recently, particularly in the Central European floods. And also far more, you need optical data to do, you really do need optical data to be sure of what you're doing in terms of grading analysis, therefore the analysis of the intensity of impact. What CENTAUR also is bringing to us as a, I'm selling CENTAUR to a certain extent because it's part of the job here. We think that some of the socioeconomic integration of the crisis data with socioeconomic stuff should boost the products that we're currently delivering. And everything combined between EMS, rapid mapping plus CENTAUR in the urban flood, but also in any other domain, including social media, etc., is enriching our products already. The social media is enriching our products, but also as we're integrating that, of course, with Hensoldt and others as well. Our own stuff, we don't just wait on others. For the situation reporting products that are highly appreciated by the users, and that's just generally speaking. I think we're there. I think we just need to go faster, and EMS needs to do that and just change a slight bit what we provide, so we can be more agile and go faster. But yeah, we can use all the data that comes in, not just ICEYE. We can use, we have a larger range of products, including quite detailed, very detailed. At the moment, they're working on aerial imagery over Spain. Mm-hmm. There's a whole set of components put in place that allow us to provide a very rich and in-depth service. So there you go.
Thank you.
Peter, are you there? Because I haven't heard anybody talk from the GRC other than Peter. Sorry, Pietro. I'm wondering whether Pietro is there.
Pietro, I think, is following us,
Okay.
but as an attendee, he cannot, let's say, unmute or unlock his camera. But I'm sure he will discuss this tomorrow at our other workshop for the advisory board. Just want to come back to this also because the things you just mentioned, because it was also a question in our Q&A regarding whether drone can assist in providing real-time data, and I think this is part of the answer. And thank you, Peter, to also have answered on this point. So I see two more hands raised from Franck and Fredrik. Maybe Fredrik can speak first, just because we haven't heard yet from him during this last part of the panel.
No, okay. The topic is more on monitoring and real time, so I wasn't having so much there. I just want to there was a message in the Q&A about how we deal with analysis of events in terms of retrospective looking at it. And I would just want to, I answered in the chat, but I want to highlight that this is a very important part of our work to routinely check how the forecasts and the monitoring performs. And if it's working, then we can take that on board. If it's not working, we learn something from it. What went wrong, and if it's something we can fix directly, or if it leads to a longer research that's needed to improve the model. So you can be sure that we are monitoring each event when it happens, during the event, and after, to learn from it. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fredrik. Franck?
Yeah, so just to contribute to the relationship with end user, right? That was the initial question. So first of all, I would say it's constant, absolutely constant during the activation. You know, any false positive or false negative that we put in our product, we know directly, because the customer, and here the term customer makes all the sense. Mm-hmm. There are commercial services that we deliver, so the people that receive it can claim for a quality, and they are right to do it. Indeed, it's our SLA. So the relationship is absolutely constant with them during the crisis. And I would say after the crisis, yeah, that's something we try systematically to put in place. And the difficulty is more in getting some ground through information, either from our customer or other authorities. I have some examples in mind in the US for the Helene or Milton storm, but also in Greece, remember the Attica fire. So we succeed in receiving some air photo campaigns or whatever other ground fields mission they did. And they could share with us the information that help us indeed to give also a level of confidence of the information that we have generated. And we were also thinking in creating a kind of layer that gives this level of confidence during the activation, but that's almost impossible because we don't have the ground through. So that's very difficult to do it.
Thank you, Frank, for your contribution. I don't know if any other one of the speaker wants to add more, or also from the other panelists. Otherwise, we have still a few minutes for one question. Maybe this is the perfect moment to share your question in the Q&A section. Otherwise, I will have a last question, but like needs to be answered in this case a bit kind of more just in a nutshell. So I'm not seeing any question in the Q&A. So let's try to tackle this one. I just wanted to have an opinion from your side on. Okay, we have actually a long question from Gerard. So I will just read it for you. I believe the slide which Frank showed, which had media input on it, was from TV or social media video. To what extent the different types of media sources, I mean, to what extent they are relevant, and traditional media such as television, radio versus social media, should all be integrated and consider, let's say, at the same level?
So I can give my vision on that, and then obviously I'll let the floor to all the other. So first of all, should we consider them? I would say yes. Obviously, we are not in a position to say, oh no, I don't want to use that channel because I don't trust it. But should we integrate it? That's part of the job. First of all, sometimes the data is by itself not usable. We are not able to extract any relevant information or, I would say, trustful information from that social network, mass media, or whatever source it is. So instead, the data make is usability. But the organization and the teams that is there in place should consider most of the information they can get. And indeed, for us, a very important point as well is this relationship with the customer. And during the crisis, they send us also information. And many times we already have them because we use, more or less the same channels, but sometimes not. So we are taking everything and then we make the filtering, I would say.
Thank you. And I see hands raised by Peter. The floor is yours.
Yeah, just quickly, I fully agree with what Frank said. I mean, social media and in general, also media, normal, not social, like the press or TV. They are valuable information. I mean, they serve a little bit also different purposes. While social media typically is available very fast, sometimes even before the national authorities knows more details, than you have tweets, you have these types of information, and this can be in a very, when it's digested and integrated into a product, quite a useful information. And in particular, also when it comes to impact, which is typically the information that is lacking at the very early stages, and where we need this type of information. Now, I just want to say that now we haven't. I mean, AI is always in the mouth of is a buzzword, but we do in particular with large language models and AI capacities. there is new possibilities in ingesting and analyzing this type of information very quickly for impacts, and seeing also, you know, checking against disinformation. So this is something that I think is also a future element that services like, or that in general for disaster risk management, we need to look at and see how we can integrate this into operational solutions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter, for your considerations. And I think we have just a few seconds more for you, Antonella. See your hand raised. The floor is yours.
Yeah, just to take one important thing is that we have to use the technologies to prevent the disaster, because we done a lot for the emergency phase, but we have to do a lot to prevent also the the disaster. So I mean, the use of technology, satellite data, the artificial intelligence can be used to produce a real-time new risk scenario or something else, or to improve the early warning system. So because climate change is forced us for new events and new extreme events that are not correctly forecasting by the model. So we have to to improve our prevention phase.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonella. I think we can, I see an hand raised. Yes, Stephen?
Just to say that all channels are welcome, but we can't just use anything that comes to us. We try and curate them. We try to be sure that what we're saying is not fake. We just don't take them in as is. Nobody's mentioned that. And I do believe also in sharing the data with the user. This is what Copernicus CMS does. Once the users have signed an agreement, they can download the data because it's useful for all phases for them. Therefore, prevention of the next one, analysis of the risks, etc. So, of course, yeah, Copernicus can provide a bit of a service in that with risk and recovery, but they, of course, have their own resources. So I do think it's good that they don't just get the vectors, they get the whole package, including access to data, which is what we do, which is what happens to, it's not we, this is what happens in Copernicus.
Thank you.
I'm not actually paid to do this, these ads for Copernicus, but anyway, I think it's important.
It's important to stress the importance of the Earth observation component of the European Union, all the contributing mission, and all the work that has been done by the Commission.
Plus the drone and aerial, and plus the drone and aerial, plus all the drone and aerial that can come from member states.
Mm-hmm. So to sum up, we can say that we need to thank a big community of providers and entities which work to develop and deliver, let's say, the necessary products and services to the end user in order to support people that are affected by these disasters. So thank you all, the speakers. It was a pleasure to have this discussion with you all and hear from your insightful presentations.